I don't think I'm over-exaggerating when I say this is the biggest game of the season. It's not just the Mitch Marner return game and he comes home and the video tribute. Does he get booed? How bad does he get booed? Not just circling around that, which is obviously the leading storyline tonight. But there's a lot of people in Leafs Nation who either A, don't give a shit, or B, love him and want to stand and applaud him and think that it's ridiculous for myself or people in the media or the fan base to suggest that this game could mean so much to either Leafs fans or media members or people in the NHL or Mitch himself. Even that aside, this is the biggest game in the season because you pair the fact that he's coming back with how important a win is tonight in the standings for the Toronto Maple Leafs. You're not where you wanted to be at this point in the year before this season started. There was an expectation that at bare minimum you'd be sitting in a playoff spot by right now. And honestly, there was probably an expectation that you'd be closer to the top of the division, and in terms of maybe leading the Atlantic Division or pushing for that first spot rather than trying to fight your way into the second wild card. So it becomes a whole lot more important. And the reason that tonight's game gets elevated as much as it does, even beyond the Marner factor, is because you've now dropped a few games or points over the last little while that were pretty costly. The Utah game following the Colorado one on the second night of a back-to-back, it is what it is. I've called it a scheduled loss. It's driven people nuts here. I'm going to stick by that. Regardless, you didn't pick up any points in that one. You follow it up with a game against Vegas in Vegas last Thursday, a game of which you led. You should have had 2 points, and you should have had it in reg, and instead you let your foot off the gas, you fall apart at the end of the third period, you blow leads, you get into overtime, and the Vegas Golden Knights win that one, so you only take away one. And then you look at Minnesota on Monday and Detroit on Wednesday. No points on Monday, 1 point against Detroit, a game in which, again, one mistake, tie game, late in the first, Detroit wins that thing in overtime. You're giving up points. You got 7 games left to the Olympic break. When you look around the injuries that are piling up and knowing what guys are battling through, knowing OEL had to leave the last game and is going to be fighting through something tonight. Matthew Knies has been fighting through something for months here now and is still choosing to play through it. William Nylander not playing. Chris Tanev yet to get surgery. Still no idea what's happening there. Brandon Carlo gets nicked up again. Anthony Stolarz thankfully coming the other way where he is returning to action tonight. But getting to the Olympic break and being in a playoff spot is paramount for this team, because if you fall out of one, if you let this thing slip away and you're outside looking up a 4, 6, 7 point deficit by the time you get to the Olympic break and return from said Olympic break, things might be too far out of hand by that point. And the decisions that Brad Treliving in the front office might make for this team in terms of going and acquiring pieces or how desperate they might get change and vary depending on where the team is in the standings. The Olympics are a good point to sit and talk with within the organization, with MLSE, with Keith Pelly, and say, where are we at? What are we doing? What do we need to change? Right now, you're hovering around a playoff spot. If this thing goes sideways before the Olympics, you might be outside looking in by a good chunk and having desperate conversations. Or flipping the other way and saying, maybe we got to sell some pieces off here. Maybe we got to trade some guys. It's an interesting spot to be in as a Toronto Maple Leafs fan right now. And these games become that much more important. Win this one tonight. You feel a little bit better about yourselves because A, you beat Mitch Marner in his return game and you took away that chance from him to have some type of glory on your home ice. And B, you get a win with your goaltender who's returned from injury, and you do so before your game on Sunday against the Colorado Avalanche, of which I'm expecting Colorado to come in here hungry. I'm not writing it off and saying it's an automatic loss, but it's a weird one that we know the Leafs traditionally struggle in. Afternoon game, not usually the most defensive, and then a Colorado team who's going to be pissed that you beat them the last time and coming off a little bit of a cooler here themselves saying, hey, it's time to turn things around. Let's go into Toronto and fucking whomp them. Get a win tonight. It makes the next little bit a little bit easier to handle. So this game becomes all that more important on top of the Mitch Marner narratives. And if you're looking for more conversation about the Mitch Marner stuff or anything like that, check us out here on the Leafs Nation 401 YouTube channel. Earlier today, Leafs Morning Take. It's live every Monday through Friday, every day, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Today, we did a whole lot on Mitch Marner and what was going to come up here tonight, his return to Toronto, the Elliot Friedman piece. All of that and more was covered on today's show, so make sure to go check that out whenever you get a chance. But that will be it for the Mitch Marner coverage for me here on the pregame. 5.5 minutes into this video, it's time now to get to our lines and our best bets, which at this point I'm sure will probably be pretty quick. But regardless, let's head on over to Daily Faceoff and see what we're working with here tonight. A presentation, as always, of Bet365. So, first line, Bobby McMahon, Auston Matthews, Max Domi. No issues here with this line. Auston Matthews has been carrying that line for a little while. Going into the last one, he had 11 in his last 12. He now obviously has 11 in his last 13. He did not score against the Red Wings, but even in that one where he generates 5 shots on goal, I thought he looked good. I thought he was creating chances. I thought he was driving the middle. I thought he was not afraid of contact. If he can keep playing like that here tonight, I think you're in a good spot as a Leafs fan, and a good spot if you are the Toronto Maple Leafs, if your big boy is rocking like that. By the way, one last piece about that article, I guess. It's not really about Marner, but I said it earlier. If he shows up tonight and he has an absolute game, I hope that Leafs Nation gives this guy the biggest round of applause you could ever anticipate or you could ever hear in Scotiabank Arena. If they sit him down on the bench for a post-game interview, they've got it blasting through the TVs, and they bring him out as a star of the game, you need to go out there and give that guy all of the celebrations, all of the cheers, all of it, everything. We heard in the article, he basically agreed to a deal 2 years before his deal was up. Much different than somebody else who's making a return tonight. Second line, Matias Maccelli, John Tavares, Matthew Knies. Quite frank, you need a little bit more from these guys. I don't think any of them are playing bad. In fact, actually, I think Matias Maccelli's playing really well. You're just getting a hampered Matthew Knies, who you can tell is battling through injury, and you're getting John Tavares, who looks like he needs to get to the Olympic break badly. I think he's played some better games over the last stretch, but still can get more out of him. I'm not trying to diss him or anything, but can get more out of him. And if that line can provide you a little bit of depth here tonight and a little bit more from that second line, I think you're in a good spot. Easton Cowan, Nick Waugh, Nick Robertson. One thing I look for here is a bounce-back game from Easton Cowan. I think that this is a kid who responds. I think he's maturing, and he's learning on the fly. He's taking things in stride, and I think that after that gaffe in overtime against the Red Wings on Wednesday night where Mo Seider chased him down, hauled him down, and it ended up leading to basically a 2-on-0 back the other way for the Red Wings to close that one out, where Dylan Larkin capped it off. I think Cowan's going to be ready to respond. He'll have energy, he'll have some legs, he'll have some juice, and I think we're going to get a big night out of him and that third line with Nick Waugh and Nick Robertson. Your fourth line tonight, Steven Lorentz, Scott Laughton, Calle Jarnkrok. And Calle Jarnkrok, I think, is wearing a little thin on Leafs Nation right now. Not because he's doing anything poorly. He just does nothing. He plays like 11, 12 minutes a night. He's just a guy on the ice who skates. What else can I describe Calle Jarnkrok's game as right now other than a guy who's out there? You want to say reliable? Okay, I guess. But he just plays hockey like he's a guy that goes on the ice. I'm not going to diss him because, or that's not meant to be a diss, because going on the ice and not being a net negative in the NHL every night for 12 minutes is pretty fucking sick, and I would trade a lot to be able to do that. But when you're a team that's needing some depth production, when you're a team that's needing a little bit more offensive contribution throughout the lineups on any given night, or you're just looking for your bottom six to be like making an impact, even if it's not on the score sheet, Jarnkrok just doesn't do that. Like, he just exists. He's a guy who plays. I don't know if it's time to give Quillen a shot over Jarnkrok, if it's just that Berube doesn't trust him at all, if Treliving needs to step in, I don't know, but Calle Jarnkrok is a frustrating entity to me because it's like, You did a lot of good things earlier on. You brought a lot. You were a utility guy, and I can't knock him for that. But now he's just carrying a cap hit. He doesn't really do much. And he just plays on a line where it's like the other two guys, as much as you can complain about them in certain aspects of their game, and I'm not going to dispute anybody on certain stuff, they have clear defined roles. Like, they do something. The third line buzzes offensively. Your top six is supposed to produce you points. The third line even actually is pretty reliable on the defensive side of the puck. The fourth line, bang bodies, hard on the forecheck, just mutants when it comes to the penalty kill, and Scott Laughton and Steven Lorentz. And then it's like, there's Calle Yarncroke. Okay. Fourth line, though, Yarncroke, Laughton, Lorentz. I said jokingly on Leafs Morning Take today, if there was a hit bet for tonight, I would be hammering Scott Laughton over. I feel like he comes out juiced up. Defensive side, you're seeing a lot of caution tape and red flashing lights there on the defensive pairings. Jake McCabe, OEL, will play tonight. We did find out yesterday. Nick Alberga tweeted out lots of speculation around OEL and whether or not he would play, and it was kind of interesting. Yesterday morning, we actually saw reports saying he might be out for a long time. He's going to play tonight. He's battling through it. He knows what's on the line. He knows he's got Olympics on the horizon. He knows that there's 7 games left in this regular season stretch until the Olympic break, and every win is that much more important. He will play tonight. Morgan Rielly, Brandon Carlo paired as your second pairing. I'm anticipating Carlo to play as well. I know he was questionable, but did skate at morning skate. We'll see during the warm-ups, but I do expect him to go. Simone Benoit, Troy Stetcher as your third pair. I don't know. I mean, I guess you're probably putting OEL with McCabe right now to, like, level him out. McCabe has been struggling of recent, so I kind of understand that. It's kind of fair. But, I mean, for me personally, I would like to just go back to where it was when McCabe was playing at his best. And most of that hockey was with Troy Stetcher this season. So, those are my thoughts on the defensive pairings and the forwards. Your first unit, Nyes, Tavares, Michelli, Auston Matthews, and Morgan Rielly. No comments there. The power play looked better in terms of what they were creating and how they were playing the other day against Detroit. Just could not capitalize. But you play like that, you create chances like that. At some point, it will break through. I do strongly believe that. Goaltending tonight. Anthony Stolarz will return to the net. Has not played since November 11th. He was listed as day-to-day, for those who forget, on November 13th. It is now January 23rd. And Anthony Stolarz makes his return to the net. Has not played in game action since November 11th. Was sent to the AHL like on a conditioning loan or whatever. Didn't even play. Shocking to me that he didn't even play in that one, but he didn't, so we keep it moving. He will start for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Aiden Hill on the other side for the Vegas Golden Knights. And if that doesn't tell you how much these guys give a shit about tonight's game on both sides, the fact that they started their backup goalie in Boston last night and they saved their starter for tonight's game against Toronto, I don't know what will. Anthony Stolarz, Aiden Hill, your goaltending matchup for this one. And with that, let's now get to our best bet segment. Our best bet's a presentation of Bet365. Use promo code NATION, NATION, code NATION, NATION. Must be 19 or older, Ontario only. Please play responsibly. If you or somebody who knows a gambling problem, visit connectsontario.ca. Going over to Bet365 to see what we do have for tonight. The Maple Leafs underdogs in this one, plus 105. Vegas Golden Knights favorites on the road, minus 125. Even off the second night of a back-to-back. I kind of get it. I do kind of get it, but you'd almost think that there would be a little bit more leniency towards the Maple Leafs, given it is home ice and how riled up the crowd might be there tonight. So, if anything, I'd probably lean towards the Leafs money line. I'm not going to bet it, but lean that way. Nick Alberga earlier today said under 6 plus 100. I kind of get it, but I think for me, I would lean more towards the over, unfortunately, Nick. So maybe a little head-to-head there internally, but not a best bet for me at all. I probably just am more inclined to go towards the over, minus 120 on that one, given the fact that Stolarz is returning, which makes me a little nervous, and Aiden Hill last time out didn't have the greatest start. These are two teams that can play some high-tempo offense and a team with the Toronto Maple Leafs that doesn't play the greatest defensively. So we'll see how things shake out, but I would lean towards an over 6 on that. We're going to go to our best bet section. We only have one tonight. We are now down 1 unit on the season. That is 1 unit down after the last 2 games, back-to-back losses on our best bets. We're going to have one bet. We're doing shots on goal. Scroll down to 3+. You're going to find Auston Matthews, or 4+, over 3.5, plus 115. That is our best bet tonight for a half unit. This is one I would just want to sit and relax and watch more than anything and not have to sweat too much out. I'm just going to have a little bit of juice on the Auston Matthews over 3.5 shots on goal, 4+ at plus 115. Half unit, $50 will profit you 57.5 on that one. If I were to look anywhere else for people, again, not endorsing these ones as official rubber stamp best bets, just want to make that clear. But if I were to look anywhere else, Cowan, anytime goal, if he wants to bounce back tonight, depending on what he's sitting at, I wouldn't be surprised with that one. The Nick Waugh anytime goal, I think could be fun. But outside of that, that's probably the extent of it. I don't think I would want to get involved in like a JT just based on how he's going right now. Maybe Scott Laughton would be a fun one. He's kind of getting some offense together here right now. He's a guy who could feed off the crowd, could give the crowd some energy. So Scott Laughton maybe as well, but that's kind of it. Our best bet remains Matthews over 3.5 shots on goal. Thanks to everyone who watched today. We appreciate the support as always. Hit that like button, subscribe here to the channel, Leafs Nation 401, right here on YouTube. I will be back following tonight's game against the Vegas Golden Knights to recap every single thing that happened in this one, whether it's the big storyline of Marner, if it's Stolarz, if it's the power play, if it's Matthews having a night. I don't know how big or bad the booze will be, but we'll talk about all of it in tonight's postgame show, and we might see if we can try to get some special guests to swing by. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. We'll see you guys tonight. Until then, keep believing, and go Leafs go. For more content just like this, including game previews, postgame live shows, Leafs Morning Take, Monday through Friday with Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill with special guests, as well as instant reaction videos. Make sure to be subscribed here to the Leafs Nation YouTube channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss anything, and drop a like.